All right, for number 1, we have what we did the very first day of school, those laws of exponents. So everything in the top, what that's in the parentheses, is being raised to the negative second power. So the top right now, the 5 is not. So it's 5 times 2 to the negative second. Don't actually do that, okay? Don't type that in the calculator. We're going to move it by hand after. X to the third to the negative second is x to the negative sixth. Y to the 0 to the negative second is y to the 0. And then negative 4 times negative 2 is a positive 8. Divided by, in the bottom, this is x to the negative 8, y to the 5th, z to the 3rd. So now I'm going to circle anything with a negative exponent, including this 2 to the negative second. I'm going to rewrite all of this stuff with everything moved. So 5, y to the 0 you do not have to write because y to the 0 is 1. So I have 5z to the 8th divided by 2 to the positive, I'll do that in a second. Divided by y to the 5th, z to the 3rd. This 2 to the negative, so now I go back to the things that are circled. This 2 to the negative second is going to come down. I'm going to put it out front because it's a coefficient. It's going to become 2 to the positive second. X to the 6th also comes down. And x to the 8th comes up. So now when I clean this up, 5 divided by 2 squared is 4. So that's really 5 over 4. Doesn't simplify at all. And then I'll do the variables. So x to the 8th divided by x to the 6th is x squared in the numerator. There's only 1 y to the 5th down here. And then z to the 8th divided by z to the 3rd is z to the 5th in the numerator. So that's your answer to number 1. This is completely simplified. For number 2, this notation means inverse. So inverse is when you switch the x and the y value and then you solve for y. So I have to do reverse PEMDAS, so I have to take care of this 1/4 out front. Instead of dividing by a 1/4, I want you instead to multiply by 4 over 1, which is really just 4. So now I have 4x equals y plus 2 raised to the 3rd power. To get rid of the 3rd power, right? To get rid of it being cubed, you're going to take the cube root of both sides. So the cube root and the cube cancel out over here. And now we have the cube root of 4x is equal to y plus 2. And then you subtract the 2. So you have y equals, you're going to put it out front, negative 2 plus the cube root of 4x. But really you should write it in this notation. Cube root of 4x. For number 3, determine all intercepts. All of them. So x-intercepts and y-intercepts. X-intercepts, that's where y equals 0. So f of x is your y. So it's 0 equals 4x to the 3rd minus 20x squared minus x plus 5. You have 4 terms, split it down the middle. On the left, you can take out 4x squared. You are left with x minus 5. On the right, the GCF is negative 1. You're left with x minus 5. So x minus 5 comes out, and you are left with 4x squared minus 1 equals 0. So now you're going to keep factoring now. 4x squared minus 1, you can do the difference of 2 squares on. The square root of 4x squared is 2x. Square root of 1 is 1. You have 1 plus, 1 minus equals 0. So this gives me x equals 5, x equals negative 1/2, and x equals positive 1/2. However, you are not done until you write these as coordinates. These 3 things right here, those are zeros. They are not x-intercepts until you write them as coordinates. So you have to write 5, 0, negative 1/2, 0, and 1/2, 0. Too many of you lost points on the last test because you stopped when you got x equals. But intercepts, you have to write coordinates. So then we also have to find the y coordinates. Y coordinates are y-intercepts. Y-intercepts are a little bit easier because y-intercepts are where x equals 0. So y equals 4 times 0 to the third minus 20 times 0 squared minus 0 plus 5 gives you y equals 5. But same deal, you're not done until you write that as a coordinate. So now the x value is 0 for y-intercept, and the y-intercept is at 5. Okay, so these are your answers. For number 4, we want the average rate of change. Another word for average rate of change is slope. Your slope formula is y2 minus y1 divided by x2 minus x1. Make sure you put the x's in the bottom, the y's go in the top. And it gives you your interval here, -2 to 3. So what that means, right, so I'll split this up this way. You have to find the slope for f of x, the slope for g of x, and then compare the two of them. See which one's bigger. So for f of x, I know that -2 and 3, those are your x1 and x2. So I have to figure out when x is -2, what's the y? When x is 3, what's the y? So when if you want, you can plug f of x into y equals and then look at the table, or you can plug it in by hand if you want, but for -2, that should be -2 comma -3. And then for 3, it should be -28. So then you plug this into the slope formula. So you would do -28 minus -3 is +3, divided by 3 minus -2 is +2. I can type the whole thing into the calculator, and this gives me a slope of -5. So the average rate of change of f of x from -2 to 3 is -5. I have to do the same thing for g of x. So I have to find when x is -2 and when x is 3, what are the y values? So it gives you -2 comma 7 and 3 comma 22. You plug this into that slope formula, so 22 minus 7 divided by 3 minus -2, or 3 plus 2. Now this one gives me a slope of 3. So I know that technically 3 is bigger than -5, but f of x for this question is going to have a greater average rate of change. So f of x is my answer. And I know that because I don't really care. It doesn't matter whether you're going up or down, whether you're increasing or decreasing, because the 5 is bigger than the 3. That's why f of x is your answer. Okay? F of x is decreasing faster than g of x is increasing. Okay? Numbers 5 and 6, just want you to state the transformation. So this was all of those rules that we did in class one day. So for number 5, this -5 in here tells you that you are going to the right 5. And then the +8 on the outside tells me that I am going up 8. And that's it. There's only 2 things happening for number 5. For number 6, there's a whole bunch of stuff. So the first is this +4. Tells me that I am going to the left 4. The 2 out front, the 2 and the negative, those are 2 separate transformations. The 2 tells me that it's a stretch by a factor of 2. Stretch by a factor of 2. The negative is a reflection. And because you are negating the entire thing, you are negating all of y, it's a reflection over the x-axis. And then the last thing is this -3. Tells me that I am also going down 3. Okay, so 4 things happening with number 6. The next few questions are about your systems of equations, so that's like the bulk of what we've been doing. That's 7 through 10, not 7 through 8. But number 7 is a quadratic linear. So if you want to, you can rewrite these as y equals and y equals. Because this is y equals in the linear, you can just take this and plug it in for y into the top equation. So really this is 7x plus 15 equals x squared plus 5x minus 20. And then this is a normal quadratic equation, so set it equal to 0 and solve. So 0 equals x squared. When you subtract the 7, you should get minus 2x. When you subtract the 15, it's minus 35. And then you're going to do master product. When you're finished with master product, I'm not going to go through it, you should get x minus 7 times x plus 5, which gives me the 2x coordinates, x equals 7 and x equals negative 5. I'm not done though. A system, your answer needs to be coordinates. So once I get the x's, I have to find the y's still. So y is equal to 7x plus 15. This one gives me 64. So this coordinate is 7, 64. The other one, y equals 7 times x plus 15. This one gives me negative 20. So this point is negative 5, negative 20 for number 7. For number 8, this is a circle and a line. So the bottom, if you want to rewrite this as y equals negative 2x plus 5, you can. So I would just take this negative 2x plus 5 and plug that in for y up here. So this is now x squared plus negative 2x plus 5 squared equals 50. Now remember, to do negative 2x plus 5 squared, you have to double distribute that. So when I double distribute that, I should get plus 4x squared minus 20x plus 25 equals 50. And then I'm going to combine like terms and subtract the 50 over. So my equation is now 5x squared minus 20x minus 25 equals 0. Everything is divisible by 5, so if you want, you can take out a 5. So you're left with x squared minus 4x minus 5 equals 0. You do master product, so this would be x minus 5 times x plus 1 equals 0. You get x is equal to 5 and x is equal to negative 1. But you still have to find the y values. So y equals negative 2x plus 5. This one is negative 5, so we have 5, negative 5 for 1 point. The other one is negative 2 times negative 1 plus 5, which gives me 7. So this other coordinate is negative 1, 7. Number 9 is another quadratic, but it's a little bit more difficult. The only reason why is because this here is not solved out for y. So if you want, you can write this as y equals 1 minus 2x. So then it would be 1 minus 2x equals negative 2x squared plus 4x plus 9. I'm going to bring everything to the left side. That way my y value, my x squared term becomes positive. So this would be 2x squared minus 6x minus 8 equals 0. Everything is divisible by 2. So you can change this equation to be this. You don't have to do this. You get x minus 4 times x plus 1 after master product, which gives me x is equal to 4 and x is equal to negative 1. I now have to find the y values. Y is equal to 1 minus 2 times x. This is y is equal to negative 7. So one of my answers is 4, negative 7. You have to write it as a coordinate. Y equals 1 minus 2 times x. This would give me 3. So the other answer is negative 1, 3. For number 10, this one, you could rewrite this as y plus 16 equals x. Now there's multiple ways that you can do this. What I'm going to do, I'm going to take this y plus 16, which is equal to x squared, and I'm going to just plug that in to x up here. You can, if you want to, you can do y equals x minus 16, and then plug that in for y into the top equation. It's the same deal. I'm going to solve for my y's first. If you do it the other way, you're going to solve for the x's first. So this is now y plus 16 minus 6 squared plus y plus 4 squared equals 36. So y plus 16 minus 6, that's y plus 10 squared, so you can write that as y plus 10 times y plus 10, plus y plus 4 squared is y plus 4 times y plus 4 equals 36. So I'm going to double distribute. I get y squared plus 20y plus 100 plus y squared plus 8y plus 16 equals 36. I combine like terms and subtract the 36 to the other side. That gives me 2y squared plus 28y plus 80 equals 0. Everything is divisible by 2. Y squared plus 14y plus 40 equals 0. So when I factor this, I get y plus 4 times y plus 10 equals 0. That gives me my two y coordinates. Y would be equal to -4 and y would be equal to -10. I have to find the x's though. X is equal to y plus 16. This gives me 12. When you write the coordinate, make sure it's in the right order. So the x comes first, comma, the y. For the other point, x is equal to y is -10 plus 16. -10 plus 16 is 6. So the other coordinate is 6, comma, -10 for number 10. 11 and 12 want you to find when f of x equals g of x. Round any decimals to the nearest hundredth. So there's no word in here that says that there's no wording that tells you that you have to do it by hand. So type this into the calculator. You're going to type for even if you try doing this by hand, number 11, you can't. So you're going to type one side into y1, the other side into y2. I just drew a little sketch of what it looks like, what it should look like in your calculator screen. So you'll see, again, the f of x equals g of x, those are the intersection points. So you're going to do second, trace, intersect. Okay? And you're going to hover right on top of this point and this point. Type it into the calculator. You should, for number 11, you should get two answers, again, because there's 2 points where they meet. F of x equals g of x, that's only the x values. I get f of x is equal to -0.78 for one of them. Again, round to the nearest hundredth is 2 decimals, and the other is x equals 2.55. Okay, for number 12, you do have to adjust your window a little bit. So plug those two in if you have to now. So number 12, it looks like this in the calculator screen. The way that I adjusted my window, because if you look at Zoom 6, you don't see the line right away. You only see the parabola, and you only see some of it. I knew that my line had a y-intercept of +14. So I knew I had to increase the y max. That way I would make my graph go up higher. So if you make your window, if your window is normal, and you just change your y max to be a 20, you'll see the parabola and the line where they meet. They only have one intersection point because they are tangent to one another, and that intersection point is at 5.93 is your answer to number 12. Number 13 is your system of equations. So what I want you to do first, every time, I want you to practice and type it into the calculator. That way you know what your answer is supposed to be. So you are going to go second matrix, edit. You need 3 by 4. You're going to type in 2, -1, 5, 5. And then you keep going until you type all the equations in. Once you type the last thing in, you're going to quit. Then you're going to press second, matrix, math, and you're going to scroll down to RREF, which is choice B. Press enter, and then you have to choose the matrix that you want to do that for, which is matrix A. When you press enter for that, you should get your answer. as 3 comma negative 4 comma negative 1. All right, so that's, I know my answer is supposed to be that. So if anything doesn't match up with that, I know where I started to go wrong. So I'm going to start by doing elimination on equations 1 and equation 2. So 2x minus y plus 5z is 5, and then negative x plus 3y plus 4z is negative 19. I am going to eliminate the x values. You can eliminate something else if you want, but to do that, I'm going to multiply the second equation by 2. It now turns into negative 2x plus 6y plus 8z is equal to negative 38. So now this I'm going to cross out. So 2x minus 2x cancels. Negative y plus 6y is 5y plus 13z equals negative 33. This is equation A. I'm going to do the same thing on equation 1 and 3, and that'll give me equation B. So I have 2x minus y plus 5z equals 5, and then I have, what is this, 8x plus 4y minus 2z is equal to 10. I have to eliminate x again. You have to get rid of the same variable both times. So to eliminate x, I'm going to multiply this top equation by a negative 4. So this is now negative 8x plus 4y minus 20z is equal to negative 20. So now when I add, 8 minus 8 cancels. I get 8y minus 22z is equal to negative 10. This is equation B. So now I'm going to do elimination on A and B. So 5y plus 13z is equal to negative 33. And then 8y minus 22z is equal to negative 10. To get these to be additive inverses, I'm going to multiply both equations by something. So I'm going to multiply the top equation by a negative 8 and the bottom equation by 5. So now this turns into negative 40y minus 104z equals 264. And the bottom equation is now positive 40y minus 110z equals negative 50. So when I add down now, this cancels. I get negative 214z is equal to 214. And when I divide, this gives me z is equal to negative 1. So I come back up here, z is negative 1, z is negative 1, that works. So now I'm going to take my z equals negative 1 and plug it into either A or B. So if I plug it into A, let me change this color. This is 5y plus 13z equals negative 33. So 5y minus 13 equals 33, negative. So that gives me 5y equals negative 20, and y is equal to negative 4, which y is equal to negative 4 also works. Okay, it matches what the calculator gave me. And now to figure out the last one, I'm going to plug it into either of the original 3. So if I do 2x minus y, so minus negative 4, plus 5z is negative 1, equals 5. This gives me 2x plus 4 minus 5 equals 5. 2x minus 1 is 5. 2x equals 6. X equals 3. X equals 3. Okay, so my answer is 3 comma negative 4 comma negative 1, and I have the algebra to back that up. Now also remember, if I ask you to justify, you have to plug x, y, and z into all 3 equations and make sure that that works. For number 14, Catherine throws a softball that can be modeled by that equation. Algebraically determine the maximum height reached by the softball. So she throws a softball, it looks like this. We want the maximum height. Another name for the maximum of a parabola is the vertex. So this wants to be put into vertex form. So I'm going to take this equation. You have to do this by hand because it says algebraically. So I'm going to switch the sides. So negative x squared plus 22x minus 112 equals y. Divide everything by negative 1. So x squared minus 22x plus 112 equals negative y. Subtract the 112 to the other side. And now I'm going to do completing the square, right? To go from standard form to vertex form, you need to use completing the square. So that's why I divided by negative 1 and why I added subtracted the 112 to the other side. So completing the square, half it, square it, add it back. So half it, square it, so I add 121 to both sides, and then add it back. So I have negative y, and then negative 112 plus 121 gives me positive 9. My last step is to factor out what the 4p value would be, which would be a negative 1. So x minus 11 squared equals negative 1 times y minus 9. So the question wants to know the maximum height. So this point is 11, 9. So 11 is this way and 9 is this way. So the maximum height would be 9, and there's no units for this. So we would just say 9 units is the maximum height. For number 15, a daredevil jumps off the tower. So this is what happens. So he jumps off the tower and then he releases his parachute, and then his path looks like this now. So it's just that this is continued and this is continued. Okay? So we want to know how long after jumping the daredevil released his parachute and how high in the air he was. So we need the intersection point or points. So we're going to set them equal to each other because they're both y equals. So negative 5t squared plus 10t plus 175 equals negative 5t plus 125. I'm going to bring everything to the right side just so that my t squared ends up being a positive. Negative 5 minus 10 is negative 15t. And then we have minus 50. Everything is divisible by 5, so I'm going to take that out. So I'm left with 0 equals t squared minus 3t minus 10. You do master product on this. It would be t minus 5 times t plus 2, which gives me t is equal to 5 and t is equal to negative 2. So there are 2 intersection points. It'll take 5 seconds or negative 2 seconds, but we don't care about what happened before he jumped off. So this is out. We don't deal with negative time. So how long after jumping the daredevil released his parachute? It was 5 seconds. The second question, how high in the air was he when he released it? So we know that the input is 5 seconds. It's been 5 seconds. To figure out how high in the air he is, you're going to plug 5 in for t. So when you do negative 5 times 5 is t plus 125. That gives you 100. So at 5 seconds, he was 100, I think, meters. 100 meters in the air. Okay, so this is the answer to the first part and the second part. And the last question, the revenue for a company is R of T, and then the cost for the production of the company is C of T. So the microwave price that will allow the company to break even. Break even is when the revenue, so the money earned, is equal to the cost, which is how much you spent. So you're not walking away with money and you're not losing any money. So you're not gaining or losing. So that's when R of T is equal to C of T. So I have negative t squared plus 29t plus 891 is equal to 429 minus 2t. I'm going to set this equal to 0. I'm going to bring everything to the right so my t squared becomes positive. And then this is minus 31t, minus 462. I do master product. Your final result should be t minus 42 times t plus 11, which gives me t is equal to 42 and t is equal to negative 11. The question, determine the microwave price that will allow it to break even. The price is the t value. So I don't have to plug anything back in, but also 42 would give me $42. Negative 11 would be negative $11. You're not going to charge someone a negative amount, so this gets crossed out. So your answer is $42 even. Will allow them to break even. Okay? Extra help will be on Monday after school. Test is on Tuesday. Have a good weekend.